Storm Fear by Robert Frost. When the wind works against us in the dark and pelts with snow, the lowest chamber window on the east, and whispers with a sort of stifled bark the beast, come out, it costs no inward struggle not to go, ah no. I count our strength, two and a child, those of us not asleep subdued to mark how the cold creeps as the fire dies at length, how drifts are piled, dooryard and road upgraded, till even the comforting barn grows far away, and my heart owns a doubt whether 'tis in us to arise with day and save ourselves unaided. Stopping by woods on a snowy evening. Whose woods are these? I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year, he gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. The sound of trees. I wonder about the trees. Why do we wish to bear forever the noise of these, more than another noise, so close to our dwelling place? We suffer them by the day till we lose all measure of pace and fixity in our joys and acquire a listening air. They are that talks of going, but never gets away, and that talks no less for knowing, as it grows wiser and older, that now it means to stay. My feet tug at the floor, my head sways to my shoulder. Sometimes when I watch the trees sway from the window or the door, I shall set forth for somewhere. I shall make the reckless choice. Someday, when they are in voice and tossing so as to scare the white clouds over them on, I shall have less to say, but I shall be gone. An old man's winter night. All out of doors looked darkly in at him, through the thin frost, almost in separate stars, that gathers on the pane in empty rooms. What kept his eyes from giving back the gaze was the lamp tilted near them in his hand. What kept him from remembering what it was that brought him to that creaking room was age. He stood with barrels round him at a loss, and having scared the cellar under him, in clomping there, he scared it once again. In clomping off, he scared the outer night. which has its sounds familiar, like the roar of trees and crack of branches, common things, but nothing so like beating on a box. A light he was to no one but himself, where now he sat concerned with he knew what, a quiet light, and then not even that. He consigned to the moon, such as she was, so late a rising, to the broken moon, as better than the sun in any case. For such a charge, his snow upon the roof, his icicles along the wall to keep, and slept, the log that shifted with a jolt. Once in the stove disturbed him, and he shifted, and eased his heavy breathing, but still slept. One aged man, can't fill a house, a farm, a countryside, or if he can, it's thus he does it of a winter night. Love and a question. A stranger came to the door at eve, and he spoke the bridegroom fair. He bore a green-white stick in his hand, and for all burden care. He asked, with the eyes more than the lips, for a shelter for the night, and he turned and looked at the road afar, without a window light. The bridegroom came forth into the porch, with "Let's look at the sky and question what of the night to be, stranger, you and I." The woodbine leaves littered the yard, the woodbine berries were blue. Autumn, yes, winter was in the wind. Stranger, I wish I knew. Within, the bride in the dusk alone, bent over the open fire. Her face rose red with the glowing coal, and the thought of the heart's desire. The bridegroom looked at the weary road, yet saw but her within, and wished her heart in a case of gold, and pinned with a silver pin. The bridegroom thought it little to give, a dole of bread, a purse, a heartfelt prayer for the poor of God, or for the rich a curse. But whether or not a man was asked to mar the love of two by harboring woe in the bridal's house, the bridegroom wished he knew. Spoils of the Dead. Two fairies it was, on a still summer day, came forth in the woods with the flowers to play. The woods they plucked, they cast on the ground, for others and those, for still others they found. Flower guided it was, that they came as they ran, on something that lay in the shape of a man. The snow must have made the feathery bed, when this one fell on the sleep of the dead. For the snow was gone a long time ago, and the body he wore nigh gone with the snow. The fairies drew near, and keenly espied a ring on his hand, and a chain at his side. They knelt in the leaves, and eerily played the glittering things and were not afraid. And when they went home to hide in their burrow, they took them along to play with tomorrow. When you came on death, did you not come flower-guided, like the elves in the wood? I remember that I did, but recognized death with sorrow and dread, and I hated and hate the spoils of the dead. The road not taken. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler. Long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay. In these no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for the day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. To the thawing wind, come with rain, O loud southwester, bring the singer, bring the nester, give the buried flower a dream, make the settled snowbank steam, find the brown beneath the white, but whate'er you do tonight, bathe my window, make it flow, melt it as the ices go, melt the glass and leave the sticks, like a hermit's crucifix. Burst into my narrow stall, swing the picture on the wall, run the rattling pages o'er, scatter poems on the floor, turn the poet out the door. The grindstone, having a wheel and 4 legs of its own, has never availed the cumbersome grindstone to get anywhere that I can see. These hands have helped it go and even race, not all the motion though they ever lent, not all the miles it may have thought it went, have got it 1 step from the starting place. It stands beside the same old apple tree. The shadow of the apple tree is thin upon it now. Its feet are fast in snow. All other farm machinery's gone in, and some of it on no more legs and wheel than the grindstone can boast to stand or go. I'm thinking chiefly of the wheelbarrow. For months it hasn't known the taste of steel, washed down with rusty water in a tin, but standing outdoors hungry in the cold, except in towns at night, is not a sin, and anyway, It's standing in the yard under a ruinous live apple tree. Has nothing any more to do with me, except that I remember how of old, one summer day, all day I drove it hard, and someone mounted on it, rode it hard, and he and I between us ground a blade. I gave it the preliminary spin and poured on water, tears it might have been, and when it spinned, almost gaily jumped and flowed, a father time-like man got on and rode, armed with a scythe and spectacles that glowed. He turned on willpower to increase the load, and slowed me down, and I abruptly slowed, like coming to a sudden railroad station. I changed from hand to hand in desperation. I wondered what machine of ages gone this represented an improvement on. For all I knew, it may have sharpened spears and arrowheads itself, much use for years, had gradually worn it, an oblate spheroid that kicked and struggled in its gait, appearing to return me hate for hate. But I forgive it now as easily as any other boyhood enemy, whose pride has failed to get him anywhere. I wondered who it was the man thought ground, the one who held the wheel back, or the one who gave his life to keep it going round. I wondered if he really thought it fair for him to have the say when we were done. Such were the bitter thoughts to which I turned. Not for myself was I so much concerned. Oh no. Although, of course, I could have found a better way to pass the afternoon than grinding discord out of a grindstone and beating insects at their gritty tune. Nor was I for the man so much concerned. Once, when the grindstone almost jumped its bearing, it looked as if he might be badly thrown and wounded on his blade, so far from caring. I laughed inside and only cranked the faster. It ran as if it was greased but glued. I'd welcome any moderate disaster that might be calculated to postpone what evidently nothing could conclude. The thing that made me more and more afraid was that we'd ground it sharp and hadn't known, and now we're only wasting precious blade. And when he raised it dripping once and tried the creeping edge of it with wary touch, and viewed it over his glasses funny-eyed, only disinterestedly to decide it needed a turn more, I could have cried. Wasn't there danger of a turn too much? Mightn't we make it worse instead of better? I was for leaving something to the wetter. What if it wasn't all it should be? I'd be satisfied if he'd be satisfied. Two witches. One, the witch of the coos. I stayed the night for shelter at a farm behind the mountain with a mother and son. Two old believers, they did all the talking. Mother, folks think a witch who has familiar spirits she could call up to pass a winter evening, but won't, should be burned at the stake or something. Summoning spirits isn't button, who's got the button? I would have them know. Son, mother can make a common table rear and kick with 2 legs like an army mule. Mother, and when I've done it, what good have I done? Rather than tip a table for you, let me tell you what rail the Sioux control once told me. He said the dead had souls, but when I asked him how could that be, I thought the dead were souls. He broke my trance. Don't that make you suspicious? That there's something the dead are keeping back? Yes, there's something the dead are keeping back. Son, you wouldn't want to tell him what we have up attic, Mother. Mother, bones, a skeleton. Son, but the headboard of Mother's bed is pushed against the attic door. The door is nailed. It's harmless. Mother hears it in the night, halting perplexed behind the barrier of door and headboard. Where it wants to get is back to the cellar, where it came from. Mother, we'll never let them, will we, son? We'll never. Son, it left the cellar 40 years ago and carried itself like a pile of dishes, up one flight from the cellar to the kitchen, another from the kitchen to the bedroom, another from the bedroom to the attic, right past both father and mother, and neither stopped it. Father had gone upstairs, Mother was downstairs. I was a baby. I don't know where I was. Mother, the only fault my husband found with me, I went to sleep before I went to bed, especially in winter, when the bed might just as well be ice and the clothes snow. The night the bones came up the cellar stairs, File had gone to bed alone and left me, but left an open door to cool the room off, so as to sort of turn me out of it. I was just coming to myself enough to wonder where the cold was coming from when I heard File upstairs in the bedroom, and I thought I heard him downstairs in the cellar. The board we had laid down to walk dry shod on, when there was water in the cellar in spring, struck the hard cellar bottom, and then someone began the stairs 2 steps for each step, the way a man with one leg and a crutch or a little child comes up. It wasn't File. It wasn't anyone who could be there. The bulkhead double doors were double locked and swollen tight and buried under snow. The cellar windows were banked up with sawdust and swollen tight and buried under snow. It was the bones. I knew them, and good reason. My first impulse was to get to the knob and hold the door, but the bones didn't try the door. They halted helpless on the landing, waiting for things to happen in their favor. The faintest restless rustling ran all through them. I never could have done the thing I did if the wish hadn't been too strong in me to see how they were mounted for this walk. I had a vision of them put together, not like a man, but like a chandelier, so suddenly I flung the door wide on him. A moment he stood balancing with emotion, and all but lost himself. A tongue of fire flashed out and licked along his upper teeth. Smoke rolled inside the sockets of his eyes. Then he came at me with one hand outstretched, the way he did in life once, but this time I struck the hand off brittle on the floor and fell back from him on the floor myself. The finger pieces slid in all directions. Where did I see one of those pieces lately? Hand me my button box, it must be there. I stand up on the floor and shouted, File, it's coming up to you. It had its choice of the door to the cellar or the hall. It took the hall door for the novelty and set off briskly for so slow a thing, still going every which way in the joints though, so that it looked like lightning or a scribble of the slap I had just now given its hand. I listened till it almost climbed the stairs from the hall to the only finished bedroom before I got up to do anything, then ran and shouted, "Shut the bedroom door, Tophile, for my sake, company," said he. "Don't make me get up. I'm too warm in bed." I'm lying forward weakly on the handrail. I pushed myself upstairs, and in the light, the kitchen had been dark. I had to own I could see nothing. Tophile, I don't see it. It's with us in the room, though. It's the bones. What bones? The cellar bones out of the grave that made him throw his bare legs out of bed and sit up by me and take hold of me. I wanted to put out the light and see if I could see it, or else mow the room with our arms at the level of our knees and bring the chalk pile down. I'll tell you what, it's looking for another door to try. The uncommonly deep snow has made him think of his old song, the old colonial boy. He always used to sing along the tote road. He's after an open door to get outdoors. Let's trap him with an open door up attic. Tophile agreed to that, and sure enough, almost the moment he was given an opening, the steps began to climb the attic stairs. I heard them. Tophile didn't seem to hear them. Quick! I slammed the door and held the knob. Tophile, get nails. I made him nail the door shut and push the headboard of the bed against it. Then we asked, was there anything up attic that we'd ever want again? The attic was less to us than the cellar. If the bones liked the attic, let them have it. Let them stay in the attic. When they sometimes come downstairs at night and stand perplexed behind the door and headboard of the bed, brushing their chalky skull with chalky fingers that sounds like dry rattling of a shutter. That's what I set up in the dark to say to no one any more since Tophile died. Let them stay in the attic since they went there. I promised Tophile to be cruel to them for helping them to be cruel once to him. Son, we think we had a grave down in the cellar. Mother, we know we had a grave down in the cellar. Son, we never could find out whose bones they were. Mother, yes, we could too, son. Tell the truth for once. They were a man's his father killed for me. I mean a man he killed instead of me. The least I could do was help dig their grave. You were about it one night in the cellar. Son knows the story, but 'twas not for him to tell the truth, suppose the time had come. Son looked surprised to see me end a lie we'd kept all these years between ourselves, so as to have it ready for outsiders. But tonight, I don't care enough to lie. I don't remember why I ever cared. Tophile, if you were here, I don't believe could tell you why he ever cared himself. She hadn't found the finger bone she wanted among the buttons poured out in her lap. I verified the name next morning, Tophile. The rural letterbox said Tophile lay away. 2. The Pauper Witch of Grafton. Now that they've got it settled whose I be, I'm going to tell them something they won't like. They've got it settled wrong, and I can prove it. Flattered I must be to have two towns fighting to make a present of me to each other. They don't dispose me, either one of them, to spare them any trouble. Double troubles, always the witch's motto anyway. I'll double theirs for both of them, you watch me. They'll find they've got the whole thing to do over. That is, if facts is what they want to go by. They set a lot, now don't they, by a record of Arthur Amy's having once been up for Hog Reeve in March meeting here in Warren. I could have told them any time this 12-month. The Arthur Amy I was married to couldn't have been the one they say was up in Warren at March meeting for the reason he weren't but 15 at the time, they say, and Arthur Amy I was married to voted the only times he ever voted, which wasn't many, in the town of Wentworth. One of the times when 'twas in the warrant to see if the town wanted to take over the tote road to our clearing where we lived. I'll tell you who'd remember. Heman Lappish. Their Arthur Amy was the father of mine. So now we've dragged it through the law courts once. I guess they'd better drag it through again. Wentworth and Warren's both good towns to live in. Only I happen to prefer to live in Wentworth from now on, and when all's said, right's right, and the temptation to do right, when I can hurt someone by doing it, has always been too much for me, it has. I know some folks that'd be set up at having in their town a noted witch, but most would have to think of the expense that even I would be. They ought to know that as a witch I'd have to milk a bat, and that'd be enough to last for days. It'd make my position stronger, think, if I was to consent to give some sign to make it sure that I was a witch. It weren't no sign, I suppose, when Malice Hughes said that I took him out in his old age and rode all over everything on him until I had him worn to skin and bones. And if I left him hitched, unblanketed, in front of one town hall, I'd left him hitched in front of everyone in Grafton County. Some cried shame on me not to blanket him, the poor old man. It would have been all right if someone hadn't said to gnaw the posts he stood beside and leave his trademark on them, so they could recognize him, not a post, that they could hear tell of was scarified. They made him keep on gnawing till he whined. Then that same smarty one said to look. He bet Hughes was a cribber and had gnawed the crib he slept in, and as sure as you were born, they found he'd gnawed the 4 posts of his bed, all 4 of them to splinters. What did that prove? Not that he hadn't gnawed the hitching posts, he said he had besides, because a horse gnaws in the stable. Ain't no proof to me. You don't gnaw trees and posts and fences too, but everybody took it for proof. I was a strapping girl of 20 then. The smarty one who spoiled everything was Arthur Amy. You know who he was. That was the way he started courting me. He never said much after we were married, but I mistrusted he was none too proud of having interfered in the Hughes business. I guess he found he got more out of me by having me a witch, or something happened to turn him around. He got to saying things to undo what he'd done and make it right. Like, no, she ain't come back from kiting yet. Last night was one of her nights out. She's kiting. She thinks when the wind makes a night of it, she might as well herself. But he liked best to let on he was plagued to death with me. If anyone had seen me coming home over the ridgepole stride of a broomstick, as often as he had in the tail of the night, I guessed they'd know what he had to put up with. Well, I showed Arthur Amy signs enough, off from the house as far as we could keep, from the barn smells you can't wash out of plowed ground, with all the rain and snow of 7 years. And I don't mean just skulls of Rogers Rangers on Moosalok, but woman's signs to man, only bewitched, so I would last him longer. Up where the trees grow short, the moss is tall, I made him gather me wet snowberries on slippery rocks beside a waterfall. I made him do it for me in the dark, and he liked everything I made him do. I hope if he is where he sees me now, he's so far off he can't see what I've come to. You can come down from everything to nothing. All is, if I'd have known when I was young and full of it, that this would be the end. It doesn't seem as if I'd had the courage to make so free and kick up in folks' faces. I might have, but it doesn't seem